Are you struggling to close deals? Cold outreach is wasting the time of both the buyer and seller at every stage, especially when sellers are using shallow and outdated data. Your organization can overcome these challenges with technology that translates comprehensive, high-quality buyer data into real-time insights. These deeper insights empower sales reps and teams to adopt the habits of top performers, which leads to better outcomes, like more pipeline, higher win rates, and larger deals. We call this deep sales. And we've built the first deep sales platform with the next generation of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/trial. That's linkedin.com/trial for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/trial and get started.
Welcome to Criminality Podcast, the podcast we started because we know, Rebekah, loving reality TV is not a crime. Rebekah, so good to see you. How are you?
You too, Melissa. Great to see you. It's not a crime, but we were at CrimeCon.
We were at CrimeCon. I can't believe we haven't done this since CrimeCon.
I know. We had a little interlude between new episodes because of that trip. So it's been a minute, but this is the first time back on the mic since the big event. So hi.
Hi. And it was great to see you. I've seen you twice this year.
I know. And there might even be a third at the end of the year.
I know.
This is great.
Yeah. Is it? I hope it is for you. It's great for me. I just don't know.
Oh, I hope it's as good for you as it was for me because it was amazing.
We had such a great time at CrimeCon. We had a table there. Rebekah did a great job. You picked all the table
Banners?
stuff and it was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, we had a really fun mugshot little tabletop banner and boy, was that an icebreaker.
That was the best possible thing we could have had at our table.
Yeah.
Because you would see people, some people would walk by and look at the pictures and keep going. And some people would realize that's Jax Taylor in the corner and immediately stop and talk to us.
Yeah, and they have that slow realization of what they're looking at, and it's just a beautiful moment. So hello to everybody we met at CrimeCon. We got to introduce the podcast to a lot of new listeners, I think. So that's exciting. So welcome if you're new here.
And welcome if you're old here.
And we're so glad to have you back if you are returning. Yeah,
Thanks for coming back. Yeah. So Rebekah, it's been a few weeks. Hold on. What were my clues? It was fish,
financing.
Fashion.
Right? Yeah, we went back and forth between finance, and financing. But,
I don't know which one I landed on.
One category. It works.
I just wanted that third F.
Of course.
I'll do anything for the F.
That's what I've heard.
Okay, Rebekah.
We're some real alliteration.
It's working. Or
Freaks.
isn't. We'll find out later.
Okay.
So Rebekah, I want to get right into this episode.
Can't
I
wait.
will say that this episode is like half biography and what's going on and half really one crime lawsuit. So it's there's a lot going on with it. And I found it to be fascinating.
Cool.
Yes. So Rebekah, if you wanted your baby back ribs, you go to Chili's, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what if you wanted those same baby back ribs, but without the bone? Who would you call?
Are we Shark Week? Shark Tank? Should we swim with the sharks? I don't know. Maybe you would
Why
call
not? I really
a shark
set you up for that, and
to
it
help?
was not a very good. Sure, you can call a shark, but really, before 2013, you'd probably call the Ghostbusters because, of course, that's all we have to call on anything. But that wouldn't be helpful. There wouldn't really be anyone to call until Al Baker's episode of Shark Tank that aired on ABC in 2013, featuring his patented process for deboning ribs.
Gross.
Yes. And while you may have missed this episode of Shark Tank, you have likely heard at least a little bit about the fallout from it more than 10 years later. So the story this week is about ribs, but it's more than that. It's about an entrepreneur, icon, and investor, and what exactly goes on in and outside of the Shark Tank.
Ooh,
Yay.
that's exciting.
Oh, good. This week we are talking about the people's shark, and many people have guessed this, Daymond John.
Yes.
Rebekah, before Shark Tank, did you know Daymond John? Did you at least know of Daymond John? And some, okay.
No, learned about him on the tank. And
we're going
in
with
the tank
now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I understand he's huge in fashion and FUBU and all of that, but I really wasn't familiar with him prior.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. So before he was on Shark Tank, as you were saying, he was known for this incredible fashion empire called FUBU, which stands for us by us. But before FUBU was a thing, Damon was a kid who wanted to make money and was willing to work hard to make that happen. So Daymond Garfield John was born February 23rd, 1969. He grew up in Hollis, Queens.
Oh my gosh. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
good.
Wow, that's a cool neighborhood. Run DMC members are from there. Like a lot of amazing artists and entrepreneurs have come out of Hollis. There's more, but I don't know. I can't remember.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to them because you're exactly right. There are some. Yeah.
Okay.
So while he said he didn't use the term entrepreneur as a kid or really even know it, he did know that he was a hustler and he would hustle to make money in whatever way he really could. So one of his biggest cheerleaders was his mom. Her name is Margot John. And Margot was a flight attendant and she found herself often working other jobs herself, but she always really put in the time to tell Damon that he needed to be successful or he should work to be successful, but like also that's on you. You need to be the one to make it happen. And actually as a mom, she sounds pretty incredible. So he was actually diagnosed with dyslexia as a child. And instead of having him read these books, these big books that would make him frustrated, what she would do is say, Damon, I'm tired. I've got to cook. I've got to do this. Can you just read the newspaper to me so I can know what's going on in the world, but I don't have time to sit down and do it. So he said at this time he didn't even realize his mom's having him practice his reading because he feels like he's helping his mom. Isn't that so sweet?
I love that. She does sound like a great mom.
Right? So long before FUBU, Damon wanted to belong to the hip hop community. And Hollis, Queens, as you were saying, is home to people like Run DMC, Salt and Peppa, and eventually 50 Cent.
Oh my
I mean, that's not the most exciting, but yeah, that's like a place, I guess.
Rich. Place of riches.
Yes. So he decided at 10 years old that maybe his way of being a part of the hip hop community would be creating fashion for it.
Oh.
Yeah. So while he's 10 years old, his mom pulls out a sewing machine and she teaches him how to sew a straight line. And that's kind of where everything started. His mom, I want to hug her. I just think she's the greatest.
Truly.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. How are you at sewing? Do you have sewing skills?
If you were to guess, what would you guess?
I think you can do anything, so I would say yes.
I pay someone to put buttons back on shirts if they fall off, so...
Oh, I just say the shirt doesn't work anymore.
I bring it to my little dry cleaner where there's a seamstress on site, and I say, can you please put this button back on this shirt? And somewhere my grandmother in heaven sighs very heavily.
Yeah, I've tried to do the button thing. I can do it, but I don't trust it. It
will fall off again.
Yeah. It's going to fall off at the most inopportune time for sure. So anyway, Damon's mom knew how to sew, and she taught him how to sew, starting with just a straight line. So
love this.
Me too. So during all this time, though, Damon is working to make money. He's shoveling snow, he's raking leaves, and at some point in his teen years, he even buys crashed cars at auctions, works to put them back together, and then he sells them for a profit. Like,
that's
innovative.
innovative.
Have you heard of another, right? It reminds me of your younger son.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. I was like, this kid's going places, and he's got a little Daymond John spirit.
About identifying opportunity. Like, that's incredible.
Right? So there's a few interviews I saw with him, and I will say at this point, Daymond John is like a motivational speaker. So sometimes it does come off in like more recent interviews, very like I saw a bunch of the same talking points. Mm-hmm. One of the big ones being, he said, Good Friday, 1989, he makes a decision, that he's going to make hats and sell them on the corners. and just see how he can do with that. So he's now into sewing. He knows he wants to be part of the hip hop community, and he wants to create something that people in that community would enjoy.
Yeah.
So to start, he had just $40 to get supplies with, right? So he buys the supplies he needs for these hats. They're like a knit hat and has a little tie on the top of them. He makes these hats the night before. He wants to go and sell these on the corner in Hollis, Queens. And within an hour, he takes that $40 he started with and he makes $800 in hats. Within an hour.
Gosh, incredible.
And so the hats really took off right away, but it wasn't really, just easy sailing straight to creating FUBU at this point. Eventually, his mom really sees that Damon has his finger on the pulse of his neighbors and community, and his mom takes it really seriously as well.
Wow.
As he's developing this company and what eventually becomes this brand, she ends up getting a $100,000 loan to help him start his business and allows him to run this business out of her home. Again.
Oh my gosh.
We should all be like Damon's mom. I mean,
and she stuck to her principle about like he had to show the demonstrated interest and talent, and he did that. And then she's like, okay, and now I'll invest. But she first invested by teaching him how to sew. Like she's done, to me, like she's done everything perfectly.
Right. And teach him how to sew and teach him how to read. To
starting,
develop this confidence and
not shame him around like what he's maybe not as good at. Yeah, incredible.
It's huge. Yeah. So Damon said through these first years of this business, he was struggling. He said basically he'd have to start the business, start selling it, find that there's some sort of a kink in it, pause the business, and then kind of figure that out. So whether it's manufacturing or marketing, he said the whole thing was a learning process. So he'd get to one step, realize he hasn't figured that out, pause things, figure that out, start over again, which I think is just such like an honest thing to say. You just don't know all of those things. In fact, during the time that FUBU was just starting, Damon also worked at Red Lobster for 5 years. So he kept that job working, even though his mom gave him a $100,000 loan. Like, I don't know. I commend him and her for all of this. Absolutely. Yeah. But how did this guy who was running this company out of his mom's home of hats, and now it included t-shirts, get his clothing on some of the most famous rappers, athletes, and for some random reason, I saw a picture of NSYNC wearing FUBU. That one really confused me. But Damon's plan for marketing was also genius. This guy's very smart. So he'd find someone in hip hop or an athlete that was fashionable, that somebody that already people looked at as being somebody that was fashionable. And he'd give them his hats or his shirts. So if he found out a rapper was doing a shoot in the neighborhood, he would go to the shoot, give them a shirt, they can wear it. And then he would take it back, which actually I thought was kind of funny after. He'd be like, great, now I need my shirt back.
That was a loan. Yeah.
Right. And so he would show up with these FUBU shirts, and it was starting to get places. Like without all this marketing behind it, he was just hustling. Eventually, FUBU really explodes, and it has investors like LL Cool J.
Wow.
Speaking of LL Cool J, listen to this clip of the now infamous Gap ad, which sneakily included a FUBU hat.
So in 1997, Gap was considered, sort of preppy, and they hired you to redefine a more cutting edge Gap. Right. And you came in and shot that commercial wearing your FUBU hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you like your outfit stylish, any other line but the Gap is childish. Everybody working as your personal stylist. You're falling, once you hear the Gap calling, you can't resist the shopping, big ballin', non-stopping, yes, y'allin'. Jeans popping in every mall in town and city. GAP, gritty, ready to go, for us, by us, on the low. G, that's for getting the A for always. P, that's for power and the people that praise. Backwards, P for popular, A for attitude. G, get it going, daddy, Gap is on the move. How easy is this? Fall into the Gap.
I think a lot of people got a little pissed off with that, right?
Well,
Is the word, maybe they were just a little agitated.
Perturbed?
Yes, perturbed. I would say they were perturbed.
It's, what, I'll put it to you like this. I was supporting this company.
Were you a
one of the
partner?
owners. Yeah, I was a partner in the
Okay.
company, and still am. And I wanted to support what we were doing. And, I felt like, honestly, that Gap was big enough
to handle that and not be hurt by it. And it worked out for everybody.
Yeah.
Because it didn't hurt them. It made them cool. And they didn't pull it. That I can give them credit for. They didn't pull it, and
They figured it out.
Yeah, they didn't go into like a crazy tailspin about it once they did find it out. So whoever those executives are, because we didn't talk much back then, thank you for not, they helped out a little fleggling company.
Yeah.
They turned around, they gave back.
They gave back.
And we appreciate that.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. I couldn't love that more.
I just love that the Gap, they had no idea.
They didn't know until later. But it is amazing that they didn't go crazy and they just went with it. That was a very smart move on their part, and crazy to hear LL Cool J call FUBU a small fledgling company.
Yeah. The whole thing is just...
It's great.
It's wild, right?
Unexpected.
And it very much... And I feel like that Daymond John was definitely behind that. That's like what he had already been doing, right?
Right.
Getting his name out there.
I love it.
And so while FUBU isn't a publicly traded company and doesn't have to release its financial information, according to Forbes, it's grossed more than $6 billion since it was founded, making Damon an absolute boss in the world of entrepreneurs.
Wow.
Which, Rebekah, makes him a natural fit for Shark Tank when it debuted on ABC way back in 2009. Were you an early adopter of Shark Tank?
Yeah, I really liked it when it came out. I wasn't must-see TV. Like, I wasn't there on the nights it was on, but anytime it was on, I was watching. And even now, it's something I will, if I put live TV on while I'm like folding laundry and I see an episode, I'll totally put it on. I fancy myself an entrepreneur. So it is absolutely interesting to me, and I've always really liked it.
Totally. And I've definitely bought a few things from people who have been on Shark Tank. Yeah. And so if you aren't familiar with the idea of Shark Tank, the idea is fairly simple. There's these entrepreneurs like Rebekah who come on the show to present their product or their idea to the sharks, and they're looking for maybe an investment. And a lot of times they're really wanting help from the sharks to promote it or manufacturing. There's something they can't do on their own. And a lot of them have started out in similar positions to Daymond John or maybe one of the other sharks. Before Shark Tank was Shark Tank in the US, it was Money Tigers in Japan back in 2001.
No way.
I swear, the US, do we have one original idea? I feel like this is like the fourth time I've had to announce this, right?
Also love that name too.
Isn't it so
Money
good?
Tigers.
Right. And then that later became Dragon's Den in Canada.
Ooh.
Yeah. In fact, two of the original sharks, Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, and Robert Herjavec, were on Dragon's Den in Canada, and that's how they were scouted.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when Mark Burnett decided to adapt it for U.S. television, he brings those two on, as well as Barbara Corcoran. I never know how to say her name.
You got it.
Okay. Kevin Harrington, who was just on for season 1. And Daymond John rounded out the first season. In season 2 and 3, Mark Cuban and Lori Greiner joined the show. And Kevin Harrington left. Making Mark, Lori, Damon, Mr. Wonderful, Barbara, and Robert really the 6 main sharks for the last 13 years. So Rebekah, favorite shark, least favorite shark. Who do you have?
I was worried you were going to do this.
I had to.
Okay. It's not going to be a satisfying answer, but it really depends on the product and the episode. Okay. Like, I feel, that's more like which shark would I choose? And it really depends what I'm pitching. But in terms of consistency, I consistently really like Damon and Robert. Like, I feel like those would be my two that I just feel, because the others make a good TV, like Mark makes good TV, Mr. Wonderful makes good TV. But they're kind of all over the place. And I like Barbara because her story is pretty incredible too, because she started out like waiting tables and she's such a real estate mogul now. But sometimes she says things that are so crazy. Like, she'll be like, I don't like how you said that, so I'm out. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
She can be a little unpredictable. So I really like Robert and Damon.
Yeah. I would agree with you. Mr. Wonderful, trash. I don't enjoy him. I hate all of his deals that he offers people.
Yeah.
Who would be your least favorite? Would it be him or someone else?
Yeah, maybe him. I like Lori too. I think if I had the product where I felt like QVC needed
Right.
to be partnered, I would go for her, but I find her like not the most compelling or interesting. I wouldn't be the most excited to work with her. And I have to say, like, Mark Cuban is clearly like full of himself and has a lot of ego, but I think he's talented and has done some interesting deals.
He has, and I do think he's a hard worker. I just saw a TikTok the other day with him talking about when he bought the Dallas Mavericks and how he went into, like, his big thing was showing how hard he works so other people would want to work as hard. And he like had the names of people who had held season passes years before, and he just had the list, and he would call them and say, hey, listen, we have, I own the team now. This is what's going on. We want to offer you a free pass to come back to, our games. But like, he was willing to put in the work. Obviously, it was an investment and it only helps him, but I don't know that everyone would sit there,
make those calls. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, no,
Like,
it's like he's not above
so.
that. I also find he seems to be the most in tune with like the future and tech. Like,
totally.
I always feel like his insight on technology and the future of business is like, oh, I'm learning something. So in that sense, I think he's good too.
I agree with both those things. He has a big like medication thing that he's rolled out where you can
he's
get
like
really
revolutionized that. That's true.
It's amazing. Yeah. I'm getting my son's EpiPens through that. Like, I'm working. I don't know if they have it on there, but I'm on like the list for when they do. Yeah, it's pretty
so
cool.
smart. Very cool.
Yeah. So Damon's been on Shark Tank the longest, with a couple of them. He's been on there since the beginning. And during his time on Shark Tank, he's received a number of accolades, including back in 2015, President Obama named him for the Presidential Ambassador for Global Entrepreneurship, or it's called PAGE. And unlike Kenneth from 30 Rock being Tracy Jordan's Jew boy, it's not that kind of page. This PAGE program was to help entrepreneurs around the globe by increasing access to capital, education, and mentorship.
Love it.
So Damon also began the Shark Group, which is a management and consulting firm, and he's also become a very highly requested public speaker, as I mentioned before. But you can also get a cameo of Damon. And Rebekah, I got you. No, I didn't get you one. I did not.
I would kind of love that.
Sorry. No. But I would like to play one for you that's featured on his page.
Corey, you did it. You did it, you did it, you did it. Congratulations on the best and biggest investment you will ever make in your entire life. I'm going to call you my fellow shark, and Ashley, my fellow sharkette. Congratulations. Through these crazy times, you made sure you stuck together and you found ways that you can move forward, and hopefully you'll be there for the rest of your life, and I know you will. Congratulations, and what an amazing, amazing time of your life, and I'm glad I can be part of it. Wishing you all the best from one shark to my fellow sharks.
So Rebekah, would you like to guess how much this 39-second video with 4 seconds of silence at the end goes for?
I liked the sentiment, first of all.
Okay.
A Daymond John cameo, 40 seconds, $500.
$799.
Okay.
Which means for 39 seconds, each word is worth $20 a second.
Okay.
And 3 of those seconds is just him saying, you did it, you did it, you did it.
Okay. I see your feeling on this. I'm just glad I was in the ballpark is what I'm excited about.
Oh, okay. Because you're like, okay. I'm like, what? No, $799.
Yeah, no, I was just glad I wasn't like
wild.
Worlds away. That's pricey. That's a good ROI. I mean, look, he's not a mogul for nothing.
That is true. But my gosh, if I paid somebody $800 and
you'd want a little
there
more.
were 4 seconds at the end that were just silent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like if you're going to do cameo, instead of making them so expensive, maybe make them a little cheaper so people can do them, but limit how many you do. But still, like, it's just, I don't know. It's
also,
gross
we've
to me.
both received longer, more personalized cameos for significantly less. So I think that's where the discrepancy is, right?
Cameos are basically my love language.
They
and so I have a hard time when there's an $800 one. Like, my brain cannot.
Yeah, well, that's not a normal thing to spend on a friend's gift. So
No,
that puts it out of the possibilities.
Back to Shark Tank, Rebekah. As of today, Damon has invested more than $8 million of his own money into businesses on Shark Tank. And while I'm sure not all of the deals have made him a ton of money, one that did was Bombas.
That was a Damon deal?
That was a
I
Damon
actually
deal,
remember
which makes sense,
that
right?
episode pretty well. I sometimes forget who they end up partnering with, but yeah, that was a good choice to go with Damon, and we love Bombas.
I'm wearing them now. They really are the only sock. They're not currently sponsoring us. They have before, but
We'll still sing their praises, even if they
Right.
never do. Yeah.
I feel like I'm not very bougie in general, but I have become kind of like I will only wear Bombas at this point.
Yeah,
So
no, they raised the
sponsor
sock
us again.
game, and it's hard to go back.
Yeah, totally. As of today, Bombas has made more than $250 million in revenue. And their big thing is you buy a pair of socks, they donate a pair of socks to homeless shelters, things like that, which is awesome. Yeah. So now we've talked about a very successful Daymond John investment, but what about the deals that didn't work for Damon? Remember the baby back ribs that I mentioned in the beginning?
I sure do.
Well, we're going to get into the mess of it all after a quick break to hear a word from this week's sponsors. Okay, so before the break, we were discussing Daymond John's incredible entrepreneurship and how he started FUBU, and one of his biggest successes on Shark Tank being Bombas socks. But now I want to switch gears and let's get into the lawsuits of it all, Rebekah.
Oh boy.
And while you may have heard of Daymond and Al Bubba Baker's falling out, there is a ton to this story, and I'm going to break it down, but in the best way I can because it really is a lot. So let's start with who Al Baker is and what led him to Shark Tank back in 2013. So Al Baker is a retired NFL player who came onto Shark Tank by saying the NFL was my job, but barbecue is my passion. Mm-hmm. After retirement, Al opened a sports-themed barbecue restaurant in Avon, Ohio, which is where he lived at the time. So while the restaurant does okay, it really is his patented boneless baby back ribs that are the star. And by saying the patent is actually on the deboning process and the cooking of the ribs. So
That is fascinating that you can
it really is.
that.
It's wild. And so, by the way, every time I see the name Al on my notes here, I keep thinking it says AI. So the whole time I'm like, wow, this is really fascinating. But Al, not AI, said on Shark Tank at the time that he had this idea for the boneless baby back ribs after trying to get his wife to eat the ribs. And she was like, ribs are great and all, but they're too messy. I don't like to eat them. Mm-hmm. And so Al said, well, that's because of the bone. That's the issue. And so he worked to find a way to debone them without actually separating them. And he goes on, like I said, to patent this technique. So he takes it a step further and made it to where not only is there no bone, but you could also quickly microwave the ribs that he made in under 2 minutes. They were delicious. The sharks all loved them. Like his daughter literally comes on, puts them in the microwave for 2 minutes. They all eat them and they love them. So He has this patent, but he also has a product. So he hints at on Shark Tank without actually saying it that these aren't like the McRibs from McDonald's. These are actual ribs minus the bones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Al's daughter, Brittany Bo Baker, knew he really had something special on his hands, but they had no idea how to really make money off of this invention, basically. Mm-hmm. So at the time, she said she was a huge fan of Shark Tank, and she suggested that her dad apply to be on it. So before coming on, if you would have asked Al who he wanted to partner with, he said he would have picked Mark Cuban, who ultimately passed on this idea, or Lori Grenier, who wasn't actually on the episode they shot for. So remember they would switch out Lori and Barbara were typically who they would switch out for, which that always irritated me.
Yeah,
but
it's like, you can't have two women on the panel at once.
God forbid. So he later said Damon wasn't his first pick because he knew he hadn't really worked in the food space prior to working with them. Maybe he did a little, but not a lot. So Al's food company that he started with this company was called Queen Anne Inc. So if I refer to it as that later, you'll know that this is the umbrella company of the restaurant as well as this patented deboning system.
Okay.
On his Shark Tank episode, Mr. Wonderful, Mr. Terrible, offers $300,000 for 49% stake in his company. But he says this deal is contingent on finding some sort of licensing deal with a large meat processor.
Okay.
According to Kevin, the food's fine, but the money is in this patent. And if you're like, how is this thing even patented? Same girl. I have no idea how you managed to get a patent for this. But here's a clip from Shark Tank that gives you a taste of the pitch, and then it segues into some information on the patent.
Oh, good.
I just want to be really, really clear. I buy this, I throw it in the microwave for 2 minutes.
And it tastes like this? You got it.
I am highly suspect of his claims for that patent. I'm not a patent attorney. I don't think he's got a trademark. We can talk about that later, though. But tell me about the patent.
I did. I pulled it up. I was very suspect. I was blown away with how solid the patent is. Okay.
Really?
Yes. It is actually better than I thought. A process for preparing a length of deboned rib meat, comprising cooking a length of rib meat, having one rib bone at least partially embedded therein at a temperature and for a time sufficient to enable the removal of at least one said rib bone, while maintaining a substantially intact length of rib meat and removing at least one of those ribs. That's it. He really does have a patent on a process for cooking ribs and removing the rib. Incredible.
I love a detail-oriented person using their gifts for YouTube,
Right?
for us. That was remarkable and very helpful because I was like,
Right.
how do you get a patent for a process like that?
Same. And okay, so this was what you can't see on the screen because this is audio, is that it was a trademark attorney and a patent attorney. So people that really know what they're doing, breaking it down. It made more sense to me just by seeing that or, you know, hearing that information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ultimately, Daymond ends up offering him $300,000 for 30% stake in the company. Same as Kevin as far as $300,000 and same as Kevin as far as it being contingent on finding a licensing deal. The only difference is the percentage he's asking for is less, 30% versus 49%.
Oh.
One thing I learned in researching this, and I guess I should have realized, is that the deal we see isn't always the deal that it ends up being.
Really? Do they like kind of hash out more details after they end filming? That makes sense.
Right. So after they make what amounts to this handshake deal, the contestants meet with either the shark or maybe someone on their team.
Okay.
Right? They run their numbers. They've done more research to see, number one, if the numbers presented were accurate, or number two, if there are more details that need to be ironed out.
Yeah.
So how many times have we seen where they're like, my valuation for my company is $30 million.
Right.
How much have you had in sales? $10,000.
Right.
You know, they can
Right.
say what they want to
Sure.
when they're up there. Let's take Al and his family for an example. According to an article in the LA Times, which will be in the show notes, and there was a lot of information in this, after securing this handshake deal of $30,000 for 30% equity from Damon, this golf cart comes, picks up Al and his daughter, brings him to a trailer on site to meet with this woman on Damon's team. Yeah, it has to be so overwhelming. So you're already like riding high from making this deal. But now you're ushered into this room. According to Al, she gives him this contract to sign saying it's basically an exclusivity contract that lasts for 18 months. And he says, you know, in that moment, I don't think I can have an attorney look at it. I realize if I walk away from this, my wife and daughter are going to be angry if it's all over this 18-month contract.
Okay.
So he signs it.
Ugh.
From there, Damon calls him a few weeks later and says, hey, we need to revise the terms of the deal. They've done their research. And instead of $300,000 for 30%, the new deal is $100,000 for 35%.
Uh-oh.
Mr. Wonderful's deal is not actually sounding so bad now.
Right.
And so this goes back to what I was saying before. While we're sure that, you know, producers vet these contestants to some degree before they come on, for Damon's part, this was a vetting situation as well as, quote, securing a licensing partner, which did not come to fruition. So Damon's basically saying, I don't know if we'll be able to get this.
Okay.
So things basically, after this new contract is hashed out, goes off the rails. Because Al says to Daymond, hey, I got the licensing partner, which was the deal was contingent on, and they're called Rastelli Foods. Have you heard of that before? They're like a distribution thing. They're pretty big.
Okay.
That's all I know.
Great.
Remember that name. We're coming back to it.
Okay.
But let's go back to those early days. Al and his family are super pumped, and they believe that they're on their way to making millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. According to Al, the producers told him that they couldn't even tell him if the episode would ever air. So some people come on there and it is on the show for various reasons.
Yeah.
But of course, there is what's known as the Shark Tank bump. And you hear time and time again how a show airs, someone's website ends up crashing because they're out of stock.
Even if they don't get a deal, they could have like skyrocketed sales.
Yeah. One of the things that I bought like right away was the Zip Up, the swim zip. I still love that thing.
Cool.
They just had a zipper on it. And when my son was young, anything's easier than taking a swim suit.
Like the wet
over their heads.
Rash guard shirt kind of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you see my son. There's a lot.
You need
sun
to wear
is a
that.
problem for us. So back to Al. According to him, Damon told them they should build this e-commerce site to capitalize on the Shark Tank bump. Okay, Al's like, that's fine. You know, we basically have only not even made $1 on internet sales. So maybe this will be really a good thing for us. We have the patent thing going, but also we could sell. He has barbecue sauce. He has these microwave ribs, whatever. So here's where things go even more off the rails. And I get to introduce one of the weirdest characters in this whole thing. Back in 2012, there's a man by the name of Nate Holzapfel. I'm only going to say that last name once because I didn't do it right and I can't do it again. This guy's on Shark Tank, right? In 2012. So a year before Al is on there.
Okay.
He pitches this company called Mission Belts Co. That's about it. It's basically a belt with no holes. I don't know if you remember this one. I don't think it's that exciting, but he calls it Mission because for every belt they sell, they donate $1 to help end world hunger. How? I don't know, but that's what their mission is. And also Bombas is giving a free pair of socks and this guy's giving $1 off of $50 belts. I don't think that gives you the right to call it Mission. Really? Mission? It's like Afterthought is what it should have been called.
Oh my gosh. You're mad.
I am. This guy's the worst. So Damon hears about this thing, likes the belt. He invests $50,000 for 37.5% stake.
Whoa.
The night his episode airs, he sells almost $200,000 in belts. So it's a big deal to the Shark Tank bump is real. From there, somehow or another, Nate becomes sort of a mentee of Damon's. So when Al begins working with Damon, Damon's like, I want you to build a new website. I want you to have a new website, sell your barbecue sauce online through this new website. And he wants Nate to develop this site for him. And of course, Al's like, great, this guy's been through Shark Tank. Yeah. He's worked with Damon. This could be a good match. And at this point, Al's excited because the barbecue sauce had only been sold at their restaurant. So he felt like, okay, this is another way to make some profit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as the family prepares for their episode to go live, the website wasn't up. It was up 3 hours before the episode aired. So imagine the stress knowing like how much profitability there could be. But if you don't have a website, you have nothing.
It's like, and you never get that opportunity back, like that window.
Exactly. So while they did sell $250,000 of online orders in a few days after the episode aired, they ended up having to refund customers around 14% of that amount because Natey Boy had never bothered to add sales tax on certain products. So,
oh boy, that's an oversight for a retail e-commerce site.
And it's like for Damon to be like, "Hey, here's this the guy we're going to use."
Yeah, that's bad.
Right,
bad
pretty
look.
bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where it gets weird is, for some reason, according to the bakers, Nate's actually put in charge of the baker's business account. And while they know their business was at least going okay, they would ask for these financial statements from Nate, and he just wasn't giving it to them.
Wait, this was after the website error? He continued on as their financial person? Okay. That's terrible.
And so Al says to Damon, hey, this isn't really working out with him, but according to Al, he basically brushed him off. Things continue with Nate, and now there's this woman named Amy Black. Amy Black works in customer service for Nate. So she's like under him, he's her boss, for both Bubba's Boneless Ribs, so Al's company, as well as another Daymond John invested company called Garage Door Lock. You might remember that one. It was like a lock on a garage door.
Okay.
Yeah. So Amy only works for Nate for 5 months, but she says that Nate kept Al and his family out of the loop with things. So basically corroborating what they're saying, that they weren't given any information. And she also said Nate had some shady business dealings. This is all alleged. But she said that he would pay her for work she was doing with the bakers out of the money from the garage door company and vice versa.
No.
So she'd be working for Al, but the garage door company is who is paying her.
I don't think you can do that.
Right. No, I think that's actually quite illegal.
Yeah.
So Amy eventually resigns. She's only there 5 months. She sends an email to Al's daughter, as well as the owner of that garage door company, to say basically, having Nate working with you is not a good idea. You need to get out of this. So according to garage doorman, I forgot to get his name, he told Damon to stay away from Nate. He was basically like, something's off with this guy. You should probably cut ties. According to the LA Times article, Damon says he doesn't remember this conversation.
Uh-oh.
So the last real interaction the Bakers have with Nate is when Brittany, the daughter, is briefly, I don't know how, but she's able to see the bank account and see that there's $100,000 in it. In June of 2014, so that's just within a year, Nate closes this account and sends them a check for $8,000.
What?
Brittany claims that she asked Damon, hey, where's the rest of the money? I knew there was $100,000. And according to Brittany, allegedly, Damon says, quote, Nate deserved it, end quote.
What?
Yeah, again, I'm just taking, this is information that is out there from the LA Times. Daymond John, I'm not saying you actually did this.
Are they like, do we find out, is Nate someone from his childhood? Like, is he a buddy? What the heck?
You want to learn more about Nate? I'll tell you more about Nate.
Oh, good.
Turns out Nate was a scumbag. He was doing things like, I don't know, finding women online, developing romantic relationships just to swindle money from them.
Oh, no.
And it got worse. He did a bunch of other things. And in August, just a couple months ago, he was sentenced to a year in prison after being charged with 15 felony and 5 misdemeanor criminal charges from 2001 to 2022, including forcible sexual abuse, fraud, and theft. 1 year.
He got a year?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's crazy. He should get a year for like every year he was actively perpetrating crimes. That's nuts.
Or he was just a shyster. I will say that Mission Belt Co. said at some point, we dropped him a long time ago. He hasn't been a part of the company, so don't hold it against them.
Interesting. Okay.
So when Damon's asked about Nate, he says, quote, he ended up showing a pattern of bad habits and he was not a fit for how we do business. He goes on to say he only became aware of his legal issues, quote, after we ended our relationship with him, which does make sense because the crimes he was accused of 2001 to 2022 doesn't mean he wasn't doing stuff before, but he has plausible deniability for the rest of it. All that to say, things started off rough with the Bakers and they really didn't get better. But that doesn't mean the company wasn't doing well. So after there's this partnership with Rastelli Food Groups, the Bakers would earn a licensing fee and 45% of net profit. So they felt like, now we're working with this company. This is what we really needed.
Yeah.
Damon actually wasn't happy about this deal because the Bakers actually got this on their own. They didn't include Damon in this. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so Damon, I think this was an email that he sent them, but this is the quote. It says, quote, I am beginning to understand how much you do not understand what working with Shark Tank is doing for you and your business. Yeah, he wrote it in May of 2015. Quote, you are part of the Shark Tank family. You and anybody that you have put on camera is now my personal responsibility. I have to report everything I can to keep Shark Tank producers and ABC up to date, end quote. Because remember, they come back and do all these like
follow-up
an update
scenes.
on blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so that was his point in all this.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does for sure. Especially he is invested in your company.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's somewhere in the contract that says if you bring on an entire manufacturer, got to let me know first.
Yeah.
So eventually, though, Al brings Damon into this whole deal. And Al has a 45% stake now and full ownership of the patents. Rastelli Foods gets 35%. Damon gets 20%. So no one has over 50%, and that's important.
Okay.
But apparently things do start to take off, and the family begins getting 5-figure checks. Ooh. So that's good. They're finally making some money, seeing some money out of this, but that doesn't last for long. What eventually becomes clear to the Bakers is they're no longer the biggest owners in this new plan. Remember, I told you he had 45% stake.
Yeah.
But basically, at some point, Damon and Rastelli basically partner. So they're making all the decisions. They're now 55% owners if you put them together.
They teamed up.
Anything the Bakers want to do, they can't do because now the other guys have more of a share, which sucks so bad for them.
Feels really unfair. Yeah.
Totally. And they're saying during this, like, we don't have much say at all. We don't know about these meetings that are happening. We don't know anything because we're not the majority shareholders at this point. So the Bakers also claim they aren't seeing any financials, and Damon has denied this as well with his attorney. But eventually in 2019, so a few years ago, the Bakers take Damon and Rastelli Foods to arbitration and mediation.
Okay.
So at this arbitration and mediation, everyone acknowledges that the company's grossed more than $14.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah. And so they agree to pay the Bakers $100,000 in 12 installments. That does not seem right.
No.
I know. It's absolutely wild. So from there, they're all supposed to have financial transparency. Part of the deal is that the Bakers cannot discuss specifics to their deals. That's
Wait,
very
that they
important.
cannot discuss what?
The specifics of the deal that they've now signed. So this new arbitration and mediation, they can't talk about it.
Okay.
So the Bakers say that's fine with that $100,000 over 12 months. Now they're thinking that they're going to keep getting money, right? Once again, that's not really what happens. While they did get a few checks, some of them were as low as $500. And meanwhile, they have $171,000 in attorney fees.
Oh,
yeah.
Gross.
So at some point, which was basically this year, Damon has enough of them like complaining and this whole thing, this whole big mess. And Brittany, the daughter, starts putting stuff on social media, which might be how you've even heard of this, TikToks, all that sort of thing, and discussing exactly the terms of the deal. So Damon takes them to court to get a restraining order, and the judge agrees to issue a temporary one after noting that at the time of arbitration, as I mentioned before, no party can talk poorly about each other in the media or share specifics of their deal. So they were
in
they
breach.
Silenced? Or yeah, what was it?
Oh,
were you
silent
or
or
you
silenced?
They were silenced.
Wait, why a restraining order and not like a gag order? Like, what's the restraining part? Like, I guess, does it cover that? Like, it's just so.
It does. I thought when I went into this that like they were threatening his life or something, and that's where the restraining order came in.
It just seems like an odd. But it must cover all kinds of things, including that.
That's
Because
what
to
I'm
me,
thinking.
a gag order seems more like what you would want.
And also anything that they had posted on social media disparaging Daymond or Rastelli Foods, they had to take down.
Sure.
And then July 14th, Al goes on the news in Cleveland, Ohio. And there's this quote that comes from all of that. And it says, I guess this must have been from the Bakers family.
Okay.
Quote, "It's our belief that Rastelli Foods and Daymond John have breached the settlement agreement by excluding Al from participation and collaboration regarding the product. These actions," they said, "are causing us irreparable harm, particularly as the time on our patent is running out," which I didn't even realize. I forgot that that's a thing.
Right. It expires.
So this is where I get worried for them. Because
Yeah, of course.
What are they going to do? So then in July, same month, this whole thing becomes a permanent restraining order from Daymond John, probably Rastelli Foods, against the Bakers. The Bakers are denied from ever publicly speaking or on social media about Rastelli Foods or Daymond John. So they had this, they can literally never say a thing about this deal that they feel they were so screwed in. I can't think of a lot that would suck worse than that, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where their whole thing is. They can't say anything. They're the underdogs for sure in this story. I do think there's a little more to it. I think there were issues. As we see, there were issues all along. I think there were issues on both sides. But for Damon's part, he's still a shark. He said at one point, and I think this is important, that high-profile people are sued all the time. We know that. I believe that he's been sued or involved in close to 30 lawsuits. Don't quote me on that number. But he said they all ended in favor of him, which I take to mean basically you can sue someone for really anything, but what matters is the result, and he's never been found in the wrong.
Yeah.
So Damon's lined up to be on the next season of Shark Tank, and it looks like there's no sign in him stopping. At this point, I hope that the Bakers are able to retain their business and the two sides can amicably just be finished, and that Shark Tank has less moments like what the Bakers have gone through and more moments like this.
Hi, my name's Shelby Gagolski, and I'm 15 years old.
And I'm Gordy Gagolski. I'm 10, and I'm her minion. We're from Jacksonville, Florida, and our company is Your Self-Expression.
I hate it. I'm out.
Oh my gosh, that's awful. That is awful. I mean, it's great, but it's awful.
It is hilarious. That is kind of what I love about Shark Tank, is either when the sharks are way off and like it is such a good idea, or when they're like, I hate it, or when they jump out and they want back in. I don't know. I enjoy the show. It's pretty fun. But Rebekah, what do you think of this whole mess?
Well, a couple things just straight out that this is making me remember and realize about my Shark Tank affinity. So it's weird that I like it in the first place because I hate seeing people's dreams dashed. I've talked about that a lot. It really is hard for me when they don't get the deal. Even if I can tell it's like the right thing that they didn't, or I don't like the product, I just still feel so bad for them. But second, this is why it's kind of unfair, and probably any criticism the show gets is like, what chance does the underdog entrepreneur have against these tycoons who are so protected?
Yep.
Most things are often going to work out in their favor. So we don't hear these like middle messy examples. We hear like the super success stories and then like the bombs or the fails. But like this is an example of one where it's just like you could really easily get taken advantage of. And I would think in this Al Baker's case, wasn't he retired NFL, did you say?
Yep.
Like he was probably like in a decent position financially. I don't know, but still doesn't hold a candle to like the network.
Yeah.
The shark, right? And all the legal protection they have. So it would make me very hesitant to actually pursue this when I think about the nitty gritty and like how easily it can go sideways, like you said, off the rails. It bums me out. And I like to think that Damon is an upstanding guy, but it does make you realize like the television magic of it all is to be like, we're family, like we're in this together. It's a partnership. But truthfully, people are always going to do what's best in their best interest financially to recoup the money. That's what it comes down to. So I'm just such a hopeful romantic in these things that I'm like, it bums me out.
I didn't put this in there, but I will say one of my favorite Daymond John deals was with Moe's Bows. I don't know if you remember the kid.
What is it?
He
the bow ties.
Just like bow ties.
Yes, I loved that partnership. That was so great. Yeah.
But it wasn't actually like a typical partnership. He said, I'm not going to buy into it or put any money, but I'm going to be your mentor.
I remember that.
Now the kid has a licensing deal with the NBA, I think.
Oh my gosh.
Like it's done quite well. So I'm sure Damon did something, profited some way, but I thought that was kind of a neat thing, like that he was looking out for somebody.
Yeah.
I like to think that.
Yeah. And paying it forward to this young entrepreneur I'm sure he saw himself in. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, it's, I still don't know where I land because I don't know, but the daughter, I didn't want to put any of her stuff in here because you can still find some of it on TikTok. So you can search for that. But since they're not allowed to talk about it, I don't know how these people got the clips.
Right. You don't want to. Yeah.
I don't want to post it.
Of course.
You can look at it on TikTok. They're there, and they're very detailed receipts that she does have. So I tend to believe that they either weren't informed and didn't know enough or were kept in the dark purposefully. I don't know.
Well, and I don't know what the actual legalities on this are, but this has come up in the podcasting industry lately. But her like accidentally or somehow accessing the account to see the real number, and then if she hadn't seen that, she wouldn't have known that payout was completely inaccurate. I feel like there should be some transparent, like you should be able to access that, at least viewing, if not like full account ownership, but like you should be really in the know on right, the cash flow and the status. So that seems crazy that they weren't in that.
Honestly, we'll link the LA Times article in the notes because it is, I mean, there's so much that I left out because there was just so much information of the back and forth and the things that were missing and all that. So I thought it was pretty interesting.
I really think it is interesting. Again, I think it's like this kind of in-between story from Shark Tank we don't often hear. So I'm into it. I love it.
Good. And I like Daymond John's whole story growing
too.
up and how he started FUBU. I think that's awesome.
I like his style on the show too, like the way he interacts with the what are they called? Contestants? No.
Contestants,
I
yeah.
don't know. Yeah. Has Shark Tank, have you adopted that into like conversation? Like whenever I'm like going to like run an idea by people, are you ever just like sharks? Have you ever wondered what's for dinner and which family member is responsible for making it? Sharks is like a big like setup for jokes in our house. Like sharks.
I love it.
I'm about to tell you it's like what time I need to be at the train station.
Yes.
I love it.
Oh, good.
That was fun. That was a really fun, like slight departure from the normal shows we do and certainly shows you do.
Yeah, I know. I'm out of TLC.
I know.
I'm gonna be drugged back in. I promise. But but I had a brief week.
Interesting.
Speaking of TLC, Rebekah, I would love to know what it is that you're watching.
It ain't TLC, except for Sister Wives.
Okay.
So my TV clues for you this week. This was the best I could do because we're in like busy season, right? From Sunday to Thursday, I have shows right now.
I love that you are not mentioning, like, it's not the rest of your life. It's just television. We're in busy season. I knew what you meant, but like...
That's how I think about it.
To a commoner, yes.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah. It's an embarrassment of riches when it comes to what's on Bravo during the week. And then I would add TLC because Sister Wives on Sunday night. Sunday nights are huge.
It's so much.
And then Sister Wives. I mean, talk about two ends of a spectrum. So I haven't been doing a lot of extracurricular TV show watching, I should say.
Sure.
But this is a show I've watched that I'm going to pick back up that I put back down. And this is the newest thing I've been watching. I don't think you'll watch it.
Okay.
But I do think it's very good. My clues are Netflix, London, drugs.
I have no idea.
Youth.
Oh my gosh, Rebekah. It's like you're saying the quiet parts out loud at this point. Like you're not even pretending anymore. It's just called youth.
No, sorry. That was another clue. Adolescence. No, I'm just kidding.
Wait,
No. That was a clue. I was trying to give you another one. No, it's not called youth, but close. Actually, it's called Top Boy.
What the heck is this?
So it's a British show about housing estates, which is what England calls like housing projects. It's a show about teenagers in a housing project in London, and specifically a couple of them vying for the role of being top boy, which would be kind of like the main drug dealer in charge. So apparently this show came out in 2011 and had one season and just got like rebooted just a couple years ago with later seasons, but you can watch the newer ones without having watched the first. A little confusing. I'm going to read the description just because I feel like that's a little confusing. And a lot of people I know are watching it, and my son was watching it and said, just start with the new ones. You don't have to watch the old ones, but it's made me want to go back and watch the old ones. Top Boy. This drama takes viewers into the housing estates of East London. There is tension between the drug gangs that operate almost openly and those who strive to live honest lives against the odds in the crime-riddled area. That tension is explored through the interlocking stories of 20-something drug dealer Duchesne, who is determined to become the area's top boy, and good-natured but vulnerable teenager Renelle, who was forced to grow up quickly following his mother's breakdown and enforced absence. It's really good. Like if you liked The Wire, if you liked Homicide: Life on the Streets, you will probably like this. If you like those kinds of
shows.
What
about Snowfall? It sounds like Snowfall. It was on FX. It was about, I think it was from the 70s, where there's like an FBI agent, but it's all about this guy who's basically becoming a drug pen in his neighborhood with crack back in the 70s, like when crack first shows up on the street. So that's what it sounds like. And that was a great show.
I will definitely check that one out. Yeah, you would probably like it. And it's just interesting because there's kids who are trying to stay on the straight and narrow, the right path, but they're so proximate to all this activity that it's very, very difficult to actually not fall into it, especially when it's your best option. But there's actually it's a great tie into today's episodes because there's some young kids, like the little brothers and the little cousins of some of these characters who are still very innocent to all of this. They don't know what their older cousins and brothers do. And, you know, they're going to school, but they're also like little entrepreneurs who are looking to make money. One is trying to make money to help his mom pay her like visa fees so she doesn't get deported. And he literally gets up at 3 a.m, cooks hamburgers in his apartment, in his kitchen, wraps them in foil and sells them on like his school grounds, like at lunchtime, and being like, burgers, like $1, and like makes all this money. Like, so cute to see. So it's really this cool, like how the entrepreneurial spirit kind of can change when you start breaking rules to do it, and
Sure.
where it comes from. And actually, now that I think about it, very on theme for the episode.
Yeah.
So well acted. There's moments of levity, like there's some humor in it. It's in London. I love anything set in England.
You do.
I'm really enjoying it. But it's a very specific type of show. Again, like it's not going to be for everyone, but I do like it. So that's what I'm watching. But you've been holding out on me on a show, and I've been wanting something lighter.
It's lighter.
Okay.
Hit
me.
This, actually, Haley recommended this. She researches for Mom's Mysteries. You know Haley.
Love Haley.
She's the best. She suggested this a while ago, and I guess I just wasn't in the mood for it or something, so I didn't watch it. So it's back from 2014, but 3 clues. Comedy Central, because that's where it started. Stars, like 5 stars. And mockumentary. I don't expect you to get it, just like you didn't expect me to get your youth one.
Not Mystery Science Theater.
I think you've guessed that for me 2 times, and I just need you to know I'm never going to watch that. You can stop.
Stop making it a thing. It's not a thing, Rebekah. I have no idea.
It's called Review. It's this show. It actually, of course, was adapted from something somewhere else, from Australia, but it's an American mockumentary from 2014 about professional critic Forrest McNeil, who provides reviews of real life experiences.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So it's him in the studio with his host, and she's like, saying, we have a new question in today, or we have a new whatever. And somebody comes on the screen, or she reads it, and it's like, what would it be like to eat 15 pancakes, which is a real basic one. And he's like, what? I'll do that. So he does that. They tape the whole thing. One was like, what's it like to get divorced? And he goes through he's married. He goes through the whole process, tells his wife he's leaving her. But as it goes on, so he's reviewing these real life experiences, not products. And as it goes on, so I'm only in the first season. There's 3, but the 3rd season has like 3 episodes. As it goes on, his life is just progressively getting worse and worse and worse.
No.
Like the divorce one, of course, he like tells his wife he wants a divorce. By the end of it, she's like, yeah, I'm fine with it.
At this point,
we should have bailed. Yeah. And so he's like talking to his producer, and he's like, I don't want to really do this. And he's like, remember, you told me no matter what, do not let you quit. So it's just watching his life unravel. Funny. It's so funny. Like divorce, I think he gives half a star. I mean,
do not recommend, would not do again.
So funny. Yeah. It really is super funny. And it's the mockumentary thing. So I'm always big into those. So it's fun. It's light.
Yeah.
It's silly. And I love Andy Daly. He's in it.
That's a cool premise. So,
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's good. I wish it did better, because I feel like it
Never
deserved
heard of
more
it.
seasons.
Yeah.
I know. So you can find it on Amazon Prime. You can watch it for free there.
Okay. You know what I just realized that I was actually watching more recently that I guess I could have done, but it's something we've already talked about, is Love is Blind, the new season.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Everyone
what was
knows
taking
we're
up my
watching
time.
that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's not a new recommendation, but I do think it's a good season.
Thank you. And next time, maybe you could watch Mystery Science Theater, so I could guess that, since you're so obsessed with it.
It's just a show of my childhood. I haven't watched it in years. It's just Comedy Central. That's the first thing I think of. So that explains the guessing. Go. But I need to
that makes
let
sense.
it go.
I've had a few of those. Let it go.
I don't watch anything else on there.
Well, Rebekah, check it out, or don't. It's up to you.
I think I will.
We'll have something else in 2 weeks. But I would like to know what the clues are for the next episode, because I have no idea, but I know you're excited.
I'm really excited. I think you're going to get it. I think people are going to get this, and I'm okay with it, because I want to ride the high of some excitement for a couple weeks.
You need a little bit. That's how I feel when I walked away from 600-pound life the other day. I was like, you know what? I need to really live. I'm going to live now
while I can.
And
while I'm mobile.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to step away from those shows for a minute. Okay, step into these clues. Orange, lemon, salmon.
Yes, it's the thing everyone wanted to talk to us about at CrimeCon, right?
It is, and it was the thing I thought, yeah, it'll go on the list for a later date. There's not enough. Right. There's more than I thought.
Oh, yes. I'm so excited for this.
Me too.
I love that salmon's
Get
a
excited.
clue.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're talking about 3 foods, 3 colors. Could go a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah. I like that. Good job, Rebekah.
Yeah, you're
Very
welcome.
fun.
I'm very excited. And I am very excited by today's episode. I really enjoyed your story. And thank you, everybody, for being here and listening.
Absolutely. We'll be back in 2 weeks with Rebekah's story, which will still be a story in the world. Like, it's just not going away. There's more stuff coming out all the time. So I can't wait to hear it from you in the nicest way possible. I can't wait for you to tell us the story.
Thanks. I'm super excited. And you can always catch Melissa every Tuesday on her other podcast, Moms and Mysteries. And you can follow us on Instagram at Criminality Show and on Facebook by the same name.
We found out a lot of people are on Facebook.
I know. We need to really not
disparage it so much.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, we'll see.
I was like, wait, what? People are following us on Facebook, Melissa. We had this realization. And
we're never on Facebook.
So hello to our Facebook
friends.
But yeah, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Take care.